Hey everyone, welcome to the Decorative Den, a look inside my craft room where I share all things crafting, planning, and DIY. My name is Charity and I am so excited to have you here with me today. This video is a fun one. So I'm going to be sharing with you how I make and design my own planner inserts. And this idea was actually suggested to me by Jennifer. And I just want to say, one, I am so sorry it's taken me this long to put this video together. But two, thank you so much for this suggestion. I think it is such a good idea, mainly because when I started creating my own planner inserts, it opened up just a whole new world of planning and functionality. And I feel like it got me one step closer to true planner peace. Because there is just something so satisfying about being able to create something that fits exactly your planning style, your lifestyle, your goals and needs. And so it is definitely something I really want to share with others and give you kind of my tips and tricks and tools, so that way if you are interested in making your own planner inserts to fit your needs, you kind of have a starting place to jump off of. Now today I'm going to be using the program Google Slides. This is all online and it is a free program. All you have to do is sign up for a Gmail or a Google account and then you'll get access to this program. Now, full disclosure, I don't always use Google Slides to make my inserts. In fact, I often use Microsoft Publisher. However, Microsoft Publisher, I feel like, is a kind of obscure and not very popular program, not to mention that you have to pay to get the Microsoft Office suite. And I really want to emphasize that you don't need to. Like, you don't need to pay for something like Microsoft Publisher or Office or Adobe Illustrator or any fancy program to be able to do this. And so that's why I'm going to show you how to do it in a free program. And everything I do today in Google Slides works just as well as if I was doing it in Publisher, and pretty much all the steps translate. So if you do want to pull these tips and tricks and use a different program, you absolutely can do that. But anyway, enough talking. Let's jump into this video. All right, guys, voiceover Charity here. So this is what Google Slides looks like when you first open a new presentation. And so the first thing I'm going to do is go up to the left-hand corner and title my presentation or my file. And the one thing I really love about Google Slides is that, as you can see, it is automatically saving my changes and it'll continue to do that as I go. So I'm just going to exit out of this themes menu and delete these text boxes that appear on the slide initially. And then the next step is to make the slide actually look like a sheet of paper. So I'm going to go to the File menu and select Page Setup. And then in this drop-down menu, I'm going to go to the custom setting. And then here you can see I can change the size of my slide in inches. And so I am going to be printing this on 8.5 by 11 standard letter size paper. So I can just adjust my height and width. And then as you can see, I have an 8.5 and 11 size piece of paper in like portrait view. Now, if you want to have that in a landscape view, you can just flip those measurements, so 11 by 8.5. And that's actually how I'm going to work today, because I think for this video, I'm going to do a 5 by 7 sized insert, and I can fit 2 of those on a sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper if it is in this horizontal or landscape view. And in general, the orientation of your paper is pretty much determined by what type of insert you're making and how easy it is to fit those inserts on a sheet of paper. So often I will use the vertical or portrait orientation if I am doing like a micro insert, because I'm able to fit 4 inserts on one sheet of paper. So that's just an example of when I would use the paper in a different way. But now I'm going to be adding some guidelines. And to do that, I'm going to go to the View menu and select Guidelines. And when I do that, I will have these two lines that appear on the page. And to move these guidelines, you just click on them and drag, and you can place them anywhere on the page that you like. And so to add additional guidelines, I'm going to go up to one of the rulers. So this top ruler here, I'm going to click and drag, and another guideline will appear. And so you want to add some more guidelines so that you have 2 horizontal guidelines and 3 vertical guidelines. And in general, you don't need to worry about where these are right now, because we are going to move them in a second to make them work for our insert. So the next thing I'm going to do is go up to the Shapes menu, and I'm going to select the rectangle shape. And I'm just going to draw a rectangle on the screen, and I'm not going to really worry about how it looks. It's because I'm going to go to this Format Options menu, and in the first little sub menu, Size and Rotation, I can adjust the height and width. And so, like I said, I'm going to be doing 2 5x7 inserts side by side on this sheet. And so I'm going to set my width as 10 inches and then my height as 7 inches. I then want to center this shape on the piece of paper. So I'm going to go to the Position submenu, and I'm going to select the center position and then set both the X and Y menus to 0. So that way my shape is dead center in the middle of my paper. Now I'm going to take my guidelines, and I want to drag those to the edges of my rectangle, since that is going to be the edge of my inserts. And whenever your guideline touches the edge of a shape, it will become highlighted in red, which I think is a really nice feature. The same thing happens whenever a guideline is perfectly centered on the slide. But okay, now that those are all set, I can delete this rectangle because I am done with it. And I'm going to move on to prepping for my cut lines. And so for that, I'm going to need 2 more vertical and 2 more horizontal guidelines. And for these 4 guidelines that I'm adding now, I want them to be on the outside, or to be the lines that are closest to the edges of the paper. So now that I have those kind of just pulled on to my screen, I am going to zoom in on this top left corner so you can have a better view of what I'm doing. And so what I'm going to do is take my guidelines, and I want them to be 0.05 of an inch away from the original guidelines that I have that were on the edges of my shape. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want my cut lines to be spaced out just slightly from the actual insert area. That way I can be sure that when I actually cut my inserts out, my cut lines won't appear on the corners of my insert. I hope that makes sense. I will show you more in a minute here, but for now, this is what my page looks like. So I'm going to zoom back in on that top left corner and show you how I space out my cut lines. So for my cut lines, I'm going to go up to the Line menu and just select a plain line. And then I'm going to draw 1 straight vertical line. And in general, I like my cut lines to be about I'd say 0.2 to 0.3 is totally fine. And so I'm going to open my Format Options menu and just check this cut line is 0.2 in height. And so that is completely fine for me. Then I'm going to go up to the Color menu and just make sure that the cut line is black. You obviously could set your cut line to whatever color you want. I like mine to just be plain black, and then I like them to be as thin as the program will allow me. So once I have the line set the way I want, I'm going to copy and paste a second version of the line. And for this one, I'm going to actually click this Rotate 90 degrees within the Size and Rotation menu. And that way I have a second copy of this same exact line, but it is in a horizontal orientation. Now to place these, I'm going to place my vertical cut line on the inside vertical guideline, touching the outside horizontal guideline. And for my horizontal cut line, I'm going to place it on the inside horizontal line just touching the edge of the outside vertical line. I don't know if I explained that very well, but hopefully you can see what I'm doing in the video. And again, this is just making it so when I follow these cut lines and cut my actual insert out, I'll be cutting on those inside guidelines and I'll have a 5x7 insert, but the actual little cut lines won't appear anywhere on that cutout insert. So I'm just going to copy and paste multiple versions of that little line, and I'm going to drag them to the various corners. So I want 2 lines in each corner, and then I'm going to need 1 cut line at the center top of the page and 1 cut line in the center on the bottom of the page. I'm then going to zoom in on each area and just place my cut lines exactly the same way as I did before, rotating one of them and making sure that my vertical cut line is on the most inside vertical guideline. Same thing with the horizontal. For these center ones, I will just take my vertical cut line and place it on the line just touching the most outside horizontal line. So I'm going through and doing that same thing in every area. Now, once I have all my guidelines placed, this is what my page looks like again. And I'm actually going to go up to my view menu and remove the guidelines just for a second so you have a better view of what we just did. And you can really see this insert taking shape now. Following those cut lines very obviously would give us 2 5x7 sheets of paper. So I'm going to go back into my view menu and add my guidelines back in because I do have a few more things I want to do to get this page set up. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab 2 more vertical guidelines, and I'm going to place these on either side of my center line. And I want these to be 1/2 inch away from the center. Now, you may not have to do this with all inserts, but certainly if you use a disc-bound planner or a ring-bound planner, it's nice to leave this 1/2 inch of space because that'll be the area where you're actually punching the paper. So that way you're not punching into your insert design. Now from here, you totally can just start designing if you want and use the entire space over here as your insert design area. Or what I prefer is to have a border around the edge of my insert where I just have the plain white paper. And so to create that, I'm going to get 4 additional guidelines and I'm going to place them 1/4 inch away from the edge of my insert, or from the guidelines that represent the edge of my insert. And then this area now becomes my design area in between my 1/2 inch guideline for my punch area and my border that I just created. Now this definitely looks a little busy, so feel free to get rid of the guidelines on the most outside edge. Those are the ones that we use to help place our cut lines. We really don't need them anymore, so they're kind of just visual clutter at this point. But then once those are gone, this sheet is ready to go. This is your template. So these most outside guidelines are the edge of your actual insert, so the edge of my 5x7 paper. And then this inside rectangle here that I'm tracing is my design area. So once I have everything set up, I like to just right click on the slide over here on the left and duplicate the slide. So that way I always have a slide that just has the blank template on it, and I can feel free to design on the original slide and not worry if I accidentally mess up guidelines or anything like that. But all right, I am actually not going to design an insert from start to finish just because I think that would be super tedious to watch and probably kind of annoying. So instead, I'm just going to share with you my most used tools and kind of like some tips I have when designing different items for an insert. And so the first thing I use a lot of is the shapes menu. And in particular, I use a lot of rectangles and a lot of the rounded rectangles. And so if you are a sticker planner, especially a vertical sticker planner, you definitely are probably going to want to make some columns for your stickers. And so to do that, I just place a rectangle shape, and then I'll go to the size and rotation menu and just set the width to 1.5 inches so I know my stickers will fit in it. And then from here you can kind of go through, make the line whatever color you want, make the inside of the shape transparent, and then I will just kind of drag this insert to fit the design that I want. So maybe I want it to fill the entire design space like this, or I might want some room for some date covers, and so I'll have a shorter column. But once I have my column set and the way I want it, I'll just copy and paste it as many times as I need, and then that way I can create an insert to use with my stickers. Now you can do the exact same thing if you are a horizontal planner, right? So just grab a rectangle shape, again, draw it out, and then go to the format options menu to make sure that is set to the size that you want. I actually have never been a horizontal planner, so I'm not sure if there is a standard box size for this, but if there is, you can set it to that. And again, I'm just going to do the same things, making the inside of the shape transparent, making sure the lines are the color I want, and then copying the shape as many times as I need for my insert. So another trick when you are creating an insert like this, that is essentially just a lot of shapes all on one page, and you want to make sure that they are centered and evenly spaced. An easy way to do that is to drag the most outside shapes. So on this horizontal insert that I'm making, that'll be the top and bottom shapes. And then I'm going to just add my two other boxes that I want. And so I want these all to be distributed evenly on the page. So I'm going to select all 4 of my boxes, and then I'm going to go to the Arrange menu and then the Distribute menu. And then I'm going to select Distribute vertically, and that will make it so my boxes are evenly distributed or evenly spaced across my insert. You can do the same thing with your vertical columns, but instead select Distribute horizontally. Now, the other shape I use very often is the rectangle with the rounded edges. I really love this shape for like heading areas, especially when I'm making note pages or checklist inserts. And so one of the great things about this shape is that once it is selected, this little yellow dot appears, and you can actually drag this dot back and forth to create either a less rounded, more squared off box, or you can drag it in the opposite direction and make a very rounded corner to the point where you can get something that has a very circular edge like this. And so I think that is just a nice option. Obviously, you can play with other shapes as well. I think they are a really fun and easy element to add to inserts to make them both decorative and functional. Now, aside from shapes, the other thing that I use a lot when creating inserts is tables. And so I am going to go through and show you kind of the most common ways I use tables. And I think the most obvious one is probably monthly view inserts. So I'm going to start with showing you how I make a monthly calendar. So I will go to the Insert Table menu and then select the size table I want. If I am making a month on one page, I will select a table that is 7 columns by 6 rows, so 7 by 6. And then I'll just drag my table to fit the insert and kind of position it however I want. But the reason I do 6 rows is because I'm going to need 5 rows for the actual dates of the month. And then I usually shorten that top row, and that is where I'll add my days of the week. And so I'm just going to kind of try to go through this fast, not to bore you too much. But of course, just like in Microsoft Word or any other similar program like this, you can go through and change the font on your table, change how the font sits within the cell. So if you want your, text to be centered in each cell, you can do that. And then you can go through with all the other rows and number them based on what the month actually looks like. And so that is a really quick and easy way to make a monthly insert. Now, Another thing you might want to do, something that I definitely like to do, is mess around with the color and thickness of the lines on my inserts. And so for this one, I'm going to start by highlighting the entire table and creating a dark line around it. And then I decided that I don't want a box or line around my words here at the top, my days of the week. So to do that, I'm going to highlight those boxes, and then this arrow will appear in the right hand corner, and then you can select whatever part of the table, so whichever line you want to edit. So for example, I'm selecting these in between vertical lines. Now those are highlighted, and I can go to my color menu and click transparent, and then those lines disappear. So that is really nice, and I can just go through and do that for all the in-between lines, the right line, the left line, and the top line. And so that way the font is all spaced out and centered correctly above my columns in my monthly, but I don't actually have like the table lines around those words. So that's a really easy way to set up a monthly view. From here, you can do pretty much whatever you want. Sometimes I like to add those rounded edge rectangles and make headers. So something that says monthly or whatever month it is if you're doing a fully dated 12-month calendar. And again, you can totally have fun with fonts and everything like that. Now, another option is creating a month on 2 pages, which is a very similar process. The only real difference being that instead of doing a 7-column table, I'm going to have a 4-column table, but again with 6 rows so that I can use that top row for my days of the week. And so I like to just create one real fast, and then I will copy and paste that to the opposite side of my insert. And then I have my calendar or my monthly view on 2 pages. And for this, I will take one of the columns, right? Because we only have 7 days of a week, but I have 8 columns, and I will right click and merge those cells. And then that way you have a sidebar area for your month on 2 pages view. So another thing that I really like to use tables for is creating like checklists or lined paper. So I'm going to create a checklist here so you can see. And again, I'm going to go to my insert menu and select table. This time I'm going to have a 2-column table, and the number of rows will depend on how many checklist items you want. So in this example, I'm going to make a checklist with 12 checkboxes or 12 lines. So I'm going to size this however I want, and I think for this example, I'm going to make mine about half of the width of my page. So then once I have it sized, I'm going to drag the middle dividing line as far to the left as it will go. So that way my column on the right-hand side is much larger than my column on the left-hand side. I'm then going to select the entire table and turn it transparent so you cannot see any of the lines. I'm then going to highlight the right-hand column, click that little arrow in the corner, and select the in-between horizontal lines. And from here, you can select whatever color you want these lines to be. I'm going to pick this dark gray, and I'm going to make them as small as possible. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom cell with the bottom line. And I now have the 12 lines for my checklist. So now I need to insert some kind of like checkbox or whatever icon I want. And you definitely could make a shape and just copy and paste the shape 12 times. I have totally done that with hearts before. But a really easy way to do this is to highlight the column, go to insert, and then the special characters menu. And from here, you have so many options for checklists. You know, you can get really creative and use a fun shape. You can, explore all of these menus. I'm going to go to the miscellaneous menu and just select a standard little checkbox, the ballot box shape. So all I have to do is click that and then exit out of this menu, and it now appears in my checklist in all 12 of the boxes on the left-hand side. And there you have it. That is a easy and quick checklist. Now we are moving on to graph paper or grid lines. So when I'm making some kind of like column or even an entire insert covered in grid lines, the first thing I'll do is I'll insert a table that has the same number of columns and rows. And then I will go to my format options menu, and in the padding section, remove all padding so that it's 0 in all 4 menus. And this will just allow you to make the cells of the table much smaller. And so you can get a much smaller grid pattern for your graph paper or your column or whatever you're making. Now, as you drag this, it may mess up the size of the cells so they're not perfect squares. And so the easiest way to correct this is to just go into your menu and lock the aspect ratio so that way the height and width stay the same. Although now I'm watching this playback and I see that my width and height were actually different from one another. So I'm not sure what's going on, but that is how you would get it to stay. Once I have the cells the size that I want, I just highlight a bunch of rows, and then I will right click and select insert rows below, or if I want to insert more columns to make my grid wider, I can insert a column to the left or right, and I'll just keep inserting rows and columns until the grid is essentially the size I want. So whether that's covering the entire insert, creating a full page of graph paper, or something like this where I'm just making a column to fit as part of the insert. So I'm going to just leave this like this for this example, but that is another great way to use tables in your inserts. So my last tip is actually just being consistent. And by that, I mean being consistent within your insert that you're creating and also being consistent across inserts. So going through and making sure that all the lines are the same shade and the same like thickness or width. If you have filled in shapes like these headers I have, and making sure that they are all shaded the same. Same thing with fonts. You know, if I'm using a specific font size and style for the headings of my inserts, I like to keep those consistent across inserts within the same planner size. And these are certainly not rules. You totally can mix in different colors and fonts and really make these whatever you want. I just like when things are consistent like that, especially if you're creating several different styles of inserts going into the same planner. I find that making them consistent like that gives all of your inserts the same look and feel. It makes them feel really finished. And then when you have them in your planner together, you have a really cohesive planner. So that would be my last tip and trick for this. So once you have actually gone through and designed an insert and you like the look of it and you're ready to print it, the thing I like to do is take my design. So for example, I'm going to use this month on 2 pages, and I will go and I will duplicate the slide by just right clicking in the slide menu on the left. And then I have 2 slides, a front and back, that are exactly the same. And that's how you would make like a 2-sided insert. You absolutely could insert more slides if you want to make like a booklet insert where you're printing multiple front and back insert copies. So I'm just going through and deleting those other slides so this is a little less cluttered looking. But say this is the insert I want, like a blank, undated, month on 2 pages, and I want it to be just a front and back insert. The next thing I'll do is I will go to the File menu and I will select the Print Settings and Preview menu. And that will bring me up to this new preview page, which is the perfect opportunity to just look at your insert again without any guidelines and make sure that everything is spaced the way you want it, that it's the colors and font you want. And if everything looks good to go, you can either print directly from this menu or you can download as a PDF. And that's what I like to do. I like to download the insert as a PDF, and then I have it here so I can save it to my computer and print it as many times as I want or need. And that's it. That is essentially how I go about making my planner inserts. So I hope that this video was helpful to you in some way. If you did like it, please hit the like button for me so I know, and consider subscribing if you are interested in other crafting, planning, and DIY videos. Thank you so much for being here, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.